welcome to Spotlight for Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Weir, and today we're speaking with Karl Dakin with Dakin Capital LLC. Karl, you've been around the entrepreneurship for a really long time, and welcome to the Spotlight.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate being on the show, Pam. I look forward to having a conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And like I was saying, you are been around the entrepreneurial spirit for a really long time, doing many, many different types of things. What was your inspiration about starting Dakin Capital?
Well, I grew up in a family business back in eastern Kansas. So from a very earliest age, at my father's knee, so to speak, we were running a farm, a Chevrolet dealership, and a farm equipment dealership. And so running your own show is something I've always known. I've never really known anything else. And as I entered into my career, I reached a point where I decided that I work well with myself and sometimes my clients. So I would start my own business. And so way back in 1986, I started consulting on mostly entrepreneurial activities, starting and growing businesses, and working in the high-tech industry, primarily in software and everything new about computers. And that's just as continued and evolved over several decades to where I'm at today.
And so what inspired you to start this particular venture?
I had two inspirations. One, I got fired from my job, and the other was
That's a good
I
one.
enjoyed. Yeah, it helps with a little encouragement of the wrong kind. I've always enjoyed working with entrepreneurs, helping businesses get started. I see that entrepreneurs are kind of the pathway for innovation to enter the world with new products and services. And to the extent that I can help them succeed, then I'm doing my own part in trying to make the world a better place.
I hear that. So, in of looking at your your business, you have a tagline that says something about there are funders that need you more than you need them. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, in my work over the years, I've continued to try to understand what will cause funding to happen. And in working with entrepreneurs, quite often they present themselves in terms that really don't relate to what a person with funding cares about. Where if they stop and kind of flip positions and ask themselves, uh, who's out there in the world where the success of my business will represent a step towards success of the person with the checkbook. If I'm an ingredient in baking a cake and I'm the sugar that's missing from this recipe, then I have a better chance of forming a relationship with the source of funding and getting the funding I need to move forward. But it's because I'm advancing their mission, being the priority over advancing my own mission. And when I find someone who needs me more than I need them, then there's a great starting point for a relationship, and that will likely lead to funding.
Well, what kind of funding sources are we talking about? Are we talking about angel investors, venture capitalists, or are we talking about um, your everyday investors that are looking to invest in different types of businesses?
So when I use the word funding or capital, I use the broadest possible definition that exists and maybe broader than anybody else. I joke sometimes that they say Eskimos have 18 words for snow, and I have about 200 words for funding, which represent different stages of the life cycle of the business, both monetary and non-monetary forms of funding, It can be a institution, it can be an individual, it could be a government program or charity foundation. There are lots of reasons for people to partner up strategically and make resources available within the partnership. It's whatever gets the job done. And a lot of times, classical funding from people who are looking at only a single benefit in the form of return on investment is too narrow. The business doesn't have a large enough profit margin. They don't have enough growth potential to qualify for that source of funding. So I have to go looking somewhere else where we may find other reasons and justifications for somebody writing a check.
Okay. Um, well, 2025 has certainly been a whirlwind of activity in the business arena with the strategic tariffs and pulling back corporations to come and produce their stuff here in America. Are you seeing any shift with funding activity?
Yes, we are continuing to see changes, but some of these changes started 2, 3 years ago. Some of this was the after effects of COVID, where there was a lot of money invested, as an example, into commercial high-rise buildings, which are now unattended, unoccupied, and because of the tie-up of funding into these larger projects, the people who made the investments couldn't turn them over and make new investments. So there's been a very steep decline in both VC and angel funding on the whole, and this spills over into everything else. And then this year, like unfortunately, the last few years has been rather chaotic, where we're not certain what's going to happen tomorrow. And investors, if nothing else, will agree that they prefer a stable and tell when they're going to get out of their investment, at what time, and with what amount. And in today's situation, that's much, much harder than it's ever been. We're kind of joking that we have the same number or a growing number of people seeking investment, but maybe we only have 20, 25% of people making investments at this time. So the ratio of funding sources to people seeking funding has changed radically. And that means we need to be more creative. We need to be more thoughtful in who we pair up or match between a source of funding and an entrepreneur who's trying to get up and running.
Okay, so let me clarify. So you say that, are you saying then that even with what's going on in 2025, there's still a downturn with investors?
Yeah, they become more conservative across the board. They will take fewer risks. They will set the bar higher. They may set the rate of return they want higher to recognize the risk that they see taking place in today's market. But a lot of them just quit investing. We call it sitting on the sidelines, or in the capital industry, it's counting your dry powder, something that's saved for a later day, not something you're going to invest today.
Right, I understand. So when an entrepreneur is starting a new venture, let's say, or a business needs capital for maintenance or expansion, what are some of the best foot forward things that they could do to attract funding?
The first thing is they need to kind of do a form of inventory or self-analysis, so they understand that if they're successful, who benefits from this. Now, this would naturally include classical investors seeking only ROI, but it goes beyond that to, is it going to benefit somebody in their supply chain? Is it going to benefit their community, a government program or project, a charity, something? And by doing this, they can then start thinking about who is most likely. This is doing an assessment of potential funding sources to see who has the greatest motivation, which is the basis of the backdrop that I'm in, where I try to find that person who has the greatest motivation to make the money, work for them in this particular 101, who will appreciate your product or service more. who will appreciate your business, the enterprise, the opportunity more. Because I want to start talking to them first. And more importantly, instead of doing a one size fits all generic stock offering, I may highly tailor the offering to be a combination of products and services along with equity. I may bring in other components into the deal that benefit this investor candidate very specifically in a very custom fit arrangement so that this is something that separates you from everybody else that's raising funding because you've tailored the deal to the funding source. It creates a higher sense of integrity and respect for the funding source, which is essential to the relationship.
Yes, well said. Speaking of community, um, one of the things that I am really big on and this podcast is looking for those innovative entrepreneurs that are making a social impact. How are you making a social impact?
Well, there's several ways. One, indirectly, I also prefer entrepreneurs who are making social impact. And I try to match them with funding sources, which are self-identified as impact investors who have decided to put people ahead of profits or something else ahead of profits, or at least are willing to take a reduction in the return so that we have a much broader canvas to work with in terms of funding sources. And then I like to support housing projects or other education or other things which tend to have a natural component of impact or benefit to the community. Then beyond that, I do my own support of charities. I'm a volunteer in two cancer charities right now, and I do mentoring from time to time when a charity is trying to put together a new donor campaign and help them understand that not everybody is an ATM, not everybody's going to write you a check just because you're doing good work, that even donors have choices amongst multiple charities and they will have an affinity with one more than another. So this helps them be more efficient and effective in their charity fundraising campaign.
You're in the Denver area?
Yeah, I'm headquartered in Centennial, Southeast Denver metro area. I'm currently working internationally with some projects in different countries around the world, mostly in the United States, and but not necessarily mostly in Colorado currently.
Okay. Um, so tell us more about your services, because you do a little more than just broker for investors or funding sources. What other services could a business owner or an entrepreneur seek from you?
Yeah, and that's a very important distinction, Pam, in that a broker is a regulated activity. And that's because they've placed themselves between the opportunity and the funding source. And the funding source is looking to the individual as a form of endorsement or source of information and so forth. So these people who are sitting in that position are held to a standard that has to conform to both federal and state regulations. I have intentionally placed myself to the side of the person who's seeking money. I call myself a funding whisperer for lack of a better description, but I want the entrepreneur to be making the pitch. I want them to understand what they're saying. I want them to know what's being said. And what I do is I work with the opportunity with the entrepreneur, and I think about what the deal structure needs to be. Once I've identified who's most likely to invest, then we structure the deal to target that particular person. And then we create the wording, the communications to help that person identify themselves with this opportunity to become interested and progress through a pitch, which will start with a, hey, look at me, to, yeah, let's get this check written, let's get this game on the road. And so I do a lot of background analysis to make a deal fundable within the framework of whoever the opportunity is and within the framework of whoever the funding source may be.
Um, and once a client of yours obtains the capital and the funding they need, are you also there consulting them and coaching them on proper cash flow?
Um, Not necessarily. I mean, there is some strategy involved, and we've already pre-identified what the money's going to be used for. So if they start spending the money on a new BMW when it said in their offering document that they were going to be spending this on marketing, they better be driving customers around in that BMW, or I may have some issues with that. But what I typically do deal with is more of the capital strategy, which is assuming that this round of funding is not the last one, that they're probably going to be setting the table for one, two, three, or multiple funding rounds going forward. And then I sometimes will work with them more as an independent sales representative, where I may know someone in my network who would like to buy their products or services. I can help facilitate transactions that generate revenue and contribute to the profit and hopefully the growth and success of the business.
Oh, I like that. That's unique because that sets you aside from all the other capital brokers, and that's what I like about what you're doing. So, so the final question is, what advice do you have for any new or existing entrepreneurs?
Um, I have a lot of advice for new entrepreneurs, and um, we could talk for days about things along that line. But entrepreneurs who are doing this, they're rookies, first-time entrepreneurs, like engaging in any activity. You don't know what you don't know. And invariably, somewhere in that zone is things that can kill you off as a business. And it's not because of anything you did wrong. It's just they're out there. And I've got a number of my own horror stories from my own failures caused by things like terrorist or death of a partner or other things of that nature. But a lot of mistakes made by entrepreneurs are ones that could have been avoided by building a team of people, either as a part of their staff, board of directors, or advisory board, who have the experience, who've been there, done that, and therefore, by definition, they can see further into the fog with their headlights than the entrepreneur who's a rookie. And so I often say the simplest, easiest way is to build a team, um, cover all the gaps in your lack of information. Don't fill it with people just because you know them. Seek out the best and the brightest, the most experienced, the most credentialed, because all of these people, by their mere agreement to associate with you in some capacity, are elevating your credibility to the market. They're like, wow, that person's all by himself. Who cares? Or that person is surrounded by an army of the best and brightest. I want to hang out with them just because. And it makes a total difference in your credibility when you're talking to someone who doesn't know you and has never worked with you before.
Very good. Very well said. Thank you so much, Carl, for being on the spotlight today. And folks, you can reach Carl at Dakin Capital with everything is down in the description, his contact information and the link to his website. And we want you to know that we want you to subscribe and like the episode. Also, we are produced by Ammons Productions, a division of LTE Media, in collaboration with Red2Black Profits. And until next time, everyone, stay in the spotlight.